All right. Well, Miriam, why don't you let me know when you think we've got everybody in, and I'm happy to start.
Awesome. I think we are all ready. I'll pass it to you, Liliana, and you can take the lead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. I don't know everyone's time zones, so it could be morning or afternoon for some of you. I also don't know if you have the ability to put your cameras on, but I'd love to see your faces, if possible, if you can. I know sometimes we join meetings and we're like halfway dressed, or our hair is like really messed up, or like we're eating lunch. So I have a cup of coffee here still from this morning. So feel free to make it super casual. Like even if you're honestly in your pajamas, as long as you're okay with it, like you can come on. It's just always so nice to see the screen light up with faces. Well, for those of you that are not going to be able to go on camera, just feel free. I'd love to just see in the chat maybe where you're located. I'd love to see kind of what geographies we have, if people are sort of in different parts of the country, or kind of what we've got going on. So Seattle, cool. Singapore, Egypt, oh my goodness, amazing. San Francisco, all right. Oh, I don't know that flag. If I don't know flags. So if India, cool. California, Santa Cruz, Germany. Okay, so love it. All right, Massachusetts. I went to school in Massachusetts. Nice. Okay. Well, love to continue to see hopefully where you're all located. And again, if you want to come on camera, go for it. If you can't, I understand. There's times where I know I just can't. Before I kind of get into talking about my session here, I'll just do a quick intro. So name is Liliana Sanchez, as you would have seen from the advertisement. I've been at Salesforce for 2 years. I've been in the business world for 20 years, which is kind of shocking to me. And I sit right now in what's called the experience design team, which really focuses on building experiences for our customers that are customer focused. And I have a specific area of interest, which is what we call human-centered change, which is all about how do we help people make the mindset shifts that are going to help them adopt new ways of working. So there's a bit of psychology in there as well. So my background is very mixed. I jumped around industries and organizations and even functional areas. I started as a process improvement expert. If any of you ever heard of Six Sigma Black Belt, I was one of those people. And then I did a bit of market analysis and research, very analytical. Then I kind of moved on and did, I went to grad school and did what's called industrial and organizational psychology, which is where I got kind of the psychology aspect of things. And then during this time, joined different organizations doing whether it was change management work or strategic HR work or process improvement work, just the full gamut. So I'll talk a little bit more about how having, just really following what interests you ultimately gets you, I think, to the right place. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But anyway, in terms of that's a little bit of my career. In terms of, I was my more personal side, I was born in Colombia, South America. I moved to the US when I was 8 with my family, my immediate family. I am the youngest. I just have one older sister, and I'm single. I am a dog mom. So I have a gorgeous golden doodle. He's going to be 4 in January, and he's like everything. If any of you have pets, I think you can relate. If you have kids, you can probably think that we think of them as our kids. And if you don't have either, then you probably have a lot of time on your hands, because I can't imagine how I used my time before I had Marlo. I lived in about 5 different places ever since I graduated. I said I went to Massachusetts for undergrad. I went to Boston University. And after that, I wanted to be away from where I grew up in US. I grew up in South Florida. I'm currently in Pembroke Pines. It's kind of in between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And I basically, with the organization that I joined, I got to move quite a bit. And I was in, like I was counting, I was in five different places across the US. And I actually made it over to Europe, to Amsterdam. I lived in Europe for 4 years. So again, that was all part of sort of my career and my progression. Would love to, you're going to have my contact info. If any of that rings interesting to you in any way, either you lived in Amsterdam or you live in Boston or you want to go to Colombia, you're obviously always welcome to reach out. But again, going back to kind of why we're here, we obviously want to share with you our experiences and make sure that you're getting some insights that are useful for you. So when I was thinking about this talk, I was really thinking, well, what would they really want to hear? And so I'm going to solicit from you, just based on the title of this talk. I'd love to hear why you came, or what would you like to walk away from after the roughly 40-45 minutes we're going to have. What got you to come here? We could be doing so many other things. We could be eating lunch, or going for a walk, or doing our other work, or if we're going to school, then our school work. I'd love to see in the chat some of those things. What got you to come here? Finding clarity, purpose within a chosen profession. Great, cool. Think about it. Take your time. Sometimes we just have to reflect on why we do things. And hopefully in the next 2-3 minutes, we can all reflect on, why you came. Resilience during challenging moments. Sure. Okay. Love it. Clarity, purpose, resilience. I'd like to know more about other fellow designers and their stories. Share social, connect, LinkedIn. Okay, so there you go. Maybe we can if we have some volunteers at the end, maybe we can kind of replicate this approach that I'm going to go through to kind of share about myself. And maybe we've got a brave soul that wants to do that, or two, and we can get some connections going. What else? I want you to reflect. How to find my direction. Yep. Looking for gratitude in my current UX UI. Yep. Role amongst the challenges of working remotely. Yep, sure. I want to understand what tips you have to help women be more assertive and moving in their career. Got it. How to maintain authenticity within corporate politics. Love it. Oh, you guys are all speaking my language. Making a transition. Okay, love it. Okay, please keep on. Sometimes we take a little bit longer to reflect. How to ask for more. Okay, sometimes we take a little bit longer to reflect about why we choose to do something. And I'd love to just make sure all those comments come in, because part of what we'll do at the end is just make sure that somehow we've tapped into one or two, or if hopefully a lot of them. And so if you didn't write something, please go ahead and just really think, what are you trying to get out of this session today? And why are you here? And love everything that I read so far. So I think one of the things that I wanted to start off with was sort of my reflections and my learnings. And especially in this area that you've all chosen to be in, which is design and creating things. I really do believe that creativity is one of those superpowers, right? Your ability to hone in and harness and nourish your creativity, right? And because I find that actually is a lot of times what helps me truly enjoy what I'm doing, right? When it's creative and it's tapping into something that only I know I'm thinking about, right? Or I'm playing with thoughts, ideas, concepts. And so I started to think, well, how do you really harness that, that joy of creativity? And I started to kind of realize that for me, it starts with reflection. Because, and maybe I'll skip to the end just for a second. I think creativity is the output of you being in a very happy state, or you know what? Happy is not even the right word. You being in a very real state, whether it's happy or not happy, right? But just being in a very real, authentic kind of space. And so for me, it was good I thought, well, how do I get to that real place? And it really boiled down to reflection, right? A lot of reflection and thinking through my life, not just reflecting like now, but reflecting on my life. And again, you should do this on a Sunday when you're just gonna like go for a tea somewhere and sit somewhere by yourself and reflect, right? This is not something that you need to be doing every single day. And again, I'm actually sharing my experience, so you don't even need to be doing any of it. But I tell you what works for me. And so really reflecting, and because I think, again, going back to this idea, you want to be in a state of creativity. And how do you get there? Well, you kind of have to be at this place of realness and of peace, really. It's kind of realness and peace. And how do you get there? So the journey starts with reflection. And I'll kind of give you a little bit of what I've done throughout my whole life, which I found very useful and very insightful. I really kind of thought through and looked at my life and thought, what were some of those teachable moments? What were moments where I really got something that I realized I should pay attention to, or I should consider? I also think about what were some of those impactful life experiences that have occurred in my life. This brings me to, I haven't bought the book, but I'm sure maybe you've heard of Oprah wrote a book about like, tell me your story, or this is my story. I don't know if any of you have heard, like, I think it's a little bit about that. It's about thinking about your story, since you can remember, and reflecting on what were those things that have happened to you that were impactful, both a positive experience and a negative experience. What were some teachable moments? What did you learn out of all of that? Like, what came out of all of that? It happened for a reason. So what came out of that? I'll tell you one. I had a personal teachable moment. Early on, it was actually in high school. I had been elected to be the president of the English Honor Society. It was my first election that I had won. I was in my junior year. And one of the responsibilities was to publish a poetry magazine. So you solicited poems, and you were like the editor-in-chief of publishing this magazine. And I had all these great ideas. I had developed the process for basically collecting the poetry from students and getting artists to draw. And I missed like a huge deadline, and the thing could never get published. It was terrible. I mean, it was terrible. Like, I mean, huge visibility in high school about me, the president of the English Honor Society, not able to publish this. It was called Spectra. I still remember it. And I didn't publish it. I ran out of time and it didn't happen. And I felt horrible, like horrible. Like the sponsor of the society, the English Honor Society, the teacher, I could tell she wanted to like wring my neck. She was never really nice to me after that. And I laugh now, right? That's actually a thing I recommend. I hope that one day all these experiences, even the ones that seem really bad, somehow you can find some little piece of humor in it, because life is very bizarre that way. I mean, in the hardest moments, it'll give you a little piece for you to at least laugh. Even, I don't know, in the saddest time, you had like purple and pink socks with a red sweater. I don't know, something very basic like that. And so I didn't publish this magazine that I was supposed to. My English, she wasn't my teacher then. She was, the sponsor. She like kind of stopped talking to me. And at that time, I had an AP English professor who had us reflect on things that went well and not well. And I wrote about this. And it was very cathartic because I was able to kind of put it all out there. And my lesson there was, shit, I better meet deadlines. It feels really bad to not meet them. And it's great to have a great vision and a great story and a great enthusiasm and get everybody like psyched about it. But at the same time, I thought, okay, I have that gift, but I'm like, I really missed the deadline. Like, and it hurt people. And so, and it's a moment in my life that I really reflect on every now and again when I feel like I'm rushing up against a deadline, but I'm so committed because I know what it feels like. Or the other thing is I plan to be delayed, right? You plan, you delay, but you communicate and you update. And so that's what I mean about reflection, right? Like reflect on even the silliest moments of your life, and learn. Think about like, what was that learning that came out of it? I think another one, and I'll jump into later in my life, as part of my moving around with different jobs. And I'll share, I started with General Electric. That's, for some of you, you might never heard of them. For others, you're like, oh, of course, the appliances company or the light bulb company or whatever. I was part of their leadership development program. And that's where I traveled a lot for the first 7 years coming out of a university. I traveled quite a bit. And one of those experiences led me to live in Amsterdam. And it was moving countries. Again, I had moved when I was 8, but it was moving countries now in my sort of like early 20s, mid 20s, early 20s. And I think there I learned 2 things. One, it was hard, but I learned the need to be flexible, right? To really just be flexible and sort of roll with the punches and kind of know that, okay, you don't know the language, but you're going to kind of figure it out. It wasn't easy. And I'll say this, I'll share with you, I went through a major depression during this time. I had a lot of personal issues going on, and actually experienced a divorce during that period. And it was probably the first time I realized first that I had to be flexible with my expectations of what my life was going to look like. Nobody plans to get divorced, right? And second, I also decided to come home after a couple more years. So 2 years, it was all great. And then the last 2 years were really tough. And I learned the value of being surrounded by people that love and care for you genuinely, whether that's your family or your friends or one person. I think knowing who those people are is really important, because I went through a really rough time, and found myself realizing, okay, I could be very flexible to live through it, and be okay with the fact that I'm now divorced. But at the same time, I realized I needed a cocoon of caring, and I needed people to be there that I trusted. And I couldn't find that being in Amsterdam. I had friends, but I didn't sense that they had the time, right? A lot of people are tied for time. So I never got the sense that I really could get that. And I needed it. I guess that was the other thing. I needed it. I acknowledged that I needed it. So I came back home and I lived with my parents. Again, this is after 7 years of, actually no, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, because I studied in Boston. So it was 11 years of not being with my parents, and not living with them. And, the whole expectations of like, Liliana is like such a great person. She's gone away to college and look at her. She's joined GE and now she's going to Europe. And all of a sudden I'm divorced. I'm back home living with my parents. I'm like the sad story. And it was just the moment in time where I probably also learned the value of not giving a shit of what other people think. You have to do that. Because you have to at some point realize that it's your life and it's about you and how you're doing and how you're feeling. And only when you get to that place can you give back, right? Because it's not all about you. Eventually, when you're there, you can give back and you can give a lot. But if you're not there, it's okay. And when you're not there, it's just got to be about you. And so I just remember thinking like, I'm going to tune it all out. I don't care like what anybody thinks. I'm just here because I need to heal and I need to like reset. And so I, again, went back to my usual reflection. And I kind of looked through at like my marriage and how I even got into being married and realized this is probably one of the few times I've said this in public, I wasn't even in love, which goes back to you can laugh at crazy things that have happened in your life, right? And I'm like, my goodness, I don't think I was even in love. Like, what was I doing? I got married very young, early 20s. So all of that to say that I went back to this place of reflection to try to find what we talked at the beginning, peace and realness for the sake of creativity, right? We're all about being able to channel that superpower. And so I really took that time to reevaluate my life and I decided to go to grad school. I decided to kind of start my own business. I decided to move out of my parents' place. I put a lot on my plate and guess what? Boom, another depression. I put a lot on my plate all at the same time. And so, and now you can tell I obviously have a tendency for, a mental illness in terms of when there's just a lot of stress on myself, I result in that. And to be quite honest with all of you, it's a cycle of a little bit of anxiety. And then the anxiety that doesn't let me function makes me feel really upset. And then I fall into depression. And so I started again, back to my reflecting. I'm like, oh, there's a pattern here. I put all this stuff on myself. I get really anxious about it all. And I get to a point where I can't perform to the level I want to perform. And then I get depressed. And then boom. And so by this time, thankfully, again, I at least now understood it better because I knew what had happened in the past. I was in US with my loving family and support, and I really sought help, right? I really looked for help and I really said, like, help me, like, what is this? And so the learning there was, even when you think you've learned, you can fall back and learn even more. So it's a never-ending learning is my point. But at every step, you've got to go back to let me reflect, let me understand what's happened, let me figure out what are the learnings, and then let me get back to a place of peace and realness so I can funnel my creativity, right? And so I was able to kind of see a great doctor. He talked to me about kind of like how my mind was working and what I needed to do. And, I have to say that since that episode, I've really had it under control. Or I should say I really managed it. I manage it through a combination of family, a very strong support system, eating super healthy, not super healthy, actually, that I'm lying to you guys. I eat okay and I splurge every now and again. So But I do eat healthy in relative terms, but I have to have my pastas every now and again, and ice cream every now and again, and pizza every now and again. I exercise a lot. I love dancing. So I've taken up like all sorts of different dancing. If you're into dancing, you again, welcome to reach out. I have very interesting interest in dancing. So love to share those with anybody that's interested. And I did for myself recognize that taking a small amount of medication was necessary. And this is the other thing I want to share with everyone here. It's okay to recognize that for yourselves. That was a huge acceptance for me. It had to become an acceptance point because the doctor said to me, you've kind of been on and off and on and off and on and off. He's like, you're going to mess up your brain. This is the type of stuff that eventually leads to potentially people having schizophrenia, like in their 40s, just, he really scared me. And I said, wow, here I am thinking I could just come off and off medicine just because I'm feeling great again. And again, this is a very private choice, but what I want to share with you is that you should be okay to choose what you need. You are your own decision maker. And I'll get a little bit into the faith component of my life because it shouldn't contradict that, because it definitely doesn't do that for me. So anyway, the great thing about the story, now we're back to a positive note, is that I was like, okay, I think I've got it under control. And each step of the way, remember, I learned from the beginning, don't miss deadlines, my Spectra magazine. I learned from moving countries, be flexible, but when you fall down, look for your cocoon and people that can help you and support you and love you. When I was feeling great and I did all these great things, I fell back down and realized, whoa, there's something really maybe going on in my chemistry as a human that I need to pay attention to. So I accepted the help I needed and I sought professional help. And then I can tell you, little by little, I started to be on a more level plane. But again, you can hear it wasn't easy, right? It was reflection, learning, what lesson, and how do I find the way forward, right? How do I find the way forward? And that's what I call like the light. How do I find the light? And I forgot the lesson on don't give a shit about what people think when you're down, right? Like that puts too much pressure on yourself. Like allow yourself to just be you at that moment in time. And so and I said, all of that sort of brought me to more stability. I was now here in the US. I started to really just thrive in my work. I mean, going back to, I nourished this creativity where it was just now real, my talents came easily and they come out easily because I'm at peace and because I'm real. I'm very real in every encounter that I have with people, very real. So going back to when you talk about politics and you talk about careers, and I can tell you, when you can get to the place where you're you and you're real, people respond very well to that, very well to that. There's nothing more powerful than authenticity, nothing. Because when you run into whatever madness you run into, you're just authentic about it. You're like, this shit doesn't make sense. Like, what are we working on? What are we doing? Or this is amazing. You're extraordinary. Oh my God, thank God you're on this team. Right? Like it flows. It flows. It comes natural. You can collaborate with people because you attract the same energy and you're now on the same field with them where you really want to just create. And so it's really beautiful. I'll tell you, I've had sort of, and one of the words I've used in other talks, I've used the word alchemia and I've used the word alchemy and evolution, because I am one of those people by nature. Not all of us are like this, by the way, but again, I'm sharing my experience where I do believe that our role in life is to evolve, right? Evolve. And sometimes that's evolve 2 steps back and 2 steps forward. But with the formula of, again, looking for the light, looking for your learnings, I do think you evolve forward. And I think for me, what's happened over the last year, probably 2 years, maybe even 3 years, I've started to really seek out just a deeper meaning in my life in general. And I'll tell you a little bit of history. So I grew up Catholic, Colombia, Catholic country. I grew up, praying to God, and I thankfully I have a very loving and giving mother who always portrayed God as a friend. He was never a punisher. He was not a punisher. He was your best friend. He was like your best buddy. He's like, you should talk to him every day. So I really grew up with a lovely relationship with God as a child, from a child's point of view. And I was very blessed to be able to keep that. In all my trials, I always looked to that relationship. But what's happened is that probably in the last 3 years, as my academia brain has taken over, I wanted to understand more, like, not just what my mom told me, but like from some sort of text that could guide me. And so who could imagine what book I'm reading? I'd love to just see one or two. Anybody, if anybody's following my train of thought, you could imagine what book I'm reading. Just guess. I love playing the guessing game. Atlas of the Heart, look at that. It's not that one, but it is one of the ones I have here. Okay. Guess number 2. Think, you guys think. I like playing these games when I talk to people. So think and put something in there. The Alchemist. I don't have that one. Actually, do I have The Alchemist here? No, it's not in this bookshelf. No. But anyway, I do have The Alchemist, and I read it and I love it, but no. Designing Your Life. No. So I love, thank you for playing along. I'm reading the Bible. So I'm reading the Bible. That's actually the book that I decided to start reading. Now, I didn't start reading it from beginning to end because I tried and it was really hard. So I found myself buying like a proper Bible, but then also reading or utilizing the Bible app. And the reason I share this with you is because even though I've always had this lovely relationship with God, I found over the last, now I'm going to say, year, that as I read and I learn more about, and again, you can read the Jewish Bible. Let me show you actually the one that I have. It's called the Complete Jewish Bible. It's actually, it has the Old Testament and it has readings from the apostles. There's actually a lot of, even though again, I was raised Catholic, I believe now I'm Christian, really, the more I reflect, but I love reading the original text from the Old Testament from understanding the source of information, right? A very, if you want to look at it, a very academic exercise, you can look at it that way. And so what I have found is that as I read more and more, I find a lot of truth in teachings that ring very true to the core of who I am, right? Nobody's sort of imposing this on me. It was self sought for, right? It was I was looking for it. And so my lesson learned here is I encourage you to read things that feed your soul, whatever those may be. Because feeding your soul is part of you staying alive and funneling that creativity that I talked about at the beginning. So feed your soul with things that connect with you. For me, the Bible has been extraordinary, and the more I connect to it, the more I see miracles in my life every day. It's wild. It's kind of like, whoa. And what I mean by miracles, it's not like something purple turned pink or something black turned white. No, it's me recognizing small little miracles, like the bird just flew and decided to stand right in front of me and look at me straight in the eye for like 2 minutes. And I'm like, how did that happen? Like, wow, this bird just wanted to have a chat with me. Or the squirrels are all sort of dancing all around me as I'm walking my dog. It's really like extraordinary. And so this is what I would think of as like magical, right? Just magical things that can happen as you connect more and more to something that feeds your soul. And so I encourage you to find that. And I would say that that is really kind of where I'm at now. And I would hope, again, if I think of a formula of how we started, right? We start with our most precious gift as designers or human-centered change strategists, which is our creativity, right? How do we honor it? How do we cherish it, and how do we nourish it, right? And to do that, we've got to be at peace and we've got to be real. And how do we do that? We look at our lives and we think about moments that have been impactful. We look at teachable moments and we reflect. We really reflect and we walk away with lots of lessons. And each of those lessons should take us to the next step in our journey. And the reason why this is so powerful is because you become more and more authentically you. And when you're authentically you, you don't have to play the politics. You don't want to play the politics. You don't care about playing the politics. You don't have to worry about what people are saying because you already learned that lesson. You don't care about that, about what people say about you. You now attract people that are similar to you in the desire to create and build and collaborate. And you start to be in this environment where it's just joy. And when it's not joy, you recognize, oh shit, there's probably a lesson I need to learn here. And hopefully you go back to the cycle of like, what's the lesson to be learned here? What's the impact? Okay, got it. And you never assume that you're not going to go into that cycle again, right? I don't know what will happen tomorrow for me that could bring me to a point where I'm very anxious or feeling depressed. And so I will work through the cycle again and just always know that there's a path to that light of finding, your authentic you. And to keep that strength, you've got to feed your soul. So you feed your soul with the things that can feed it. For me, like I said, I found the Bible. I've always had a great relationship with God, and so it's very powerful for me. But again, it doesn't mean I don't read Brené Brown's, Atlas of the Heart. I have this one pending. I recommend for any of you, New Earth, if you haven't, Eckhart Tolle. He's actually very inspiring as well, very wise. And other things, when you start doing this, if you choose to do this sort of formula that I'm recommending, you're going to see how your whole life connects. It's amazing. Your whole life connects. And this is what I've started to realize. Things that you might have done 10 years ago, all of a sudden become relevant. And I'll tell you something. I'm going to show it with an example. Back when I was at my previous 2 employers ago, I had an office and everybody kept nagging me about like, decorate your office. And I was like, oh, so because I'm one of those that like, I kind of want the perfect thing to decorate my office with. I can't just put anything up. It's got to be like that amazing thing that just fills my heart. So I finally thought, you know what? I love collecting quotes. I'm going to get quotes created on, like, there's a lady that was doing this for her office, like on like a poster thing. I'll show you in a minute. And so I did that, and I decorated my office with that. Obviously, I moved on from there. And point is, I've had these poster things that I got made here, and I couldn't imagine a more perfect place to now show them than now. So I'm going to do that, because I'm going to show you some of my favorite quotes. And it's very funny because I was kind of running out of time when I was preparing for this. And I thought, oh my God, I need to put the quotes in like a slide, and I need to make sure that I bring up the slide. And then I'm like, Liliana, you don't need slides. You have like visuals. I haven't even hung them up yet because I'm in my new, like I'm in my house office now, and I haven't thought of bringing them up. But anyway, so I'm going to show you one of my, now I'm just going to show you a little bit about myself. This is one of my favorite quotes. I don't know, it's by Charlie Chaplin. And it says, not everybody agrees with this, by the way, but it's one of my favorite. You need power only when you want to do something harmful. Otherwise, love is enough to get everything done. I believe in this, really. And so I love this quote. Then I have another quote by Rumi. I love this one. It's very cool. Live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. Why not, right? Why not? And I'll show you one last one. And this one speaks a lot to me because I'm naturally, people think, generally people think very sweet, very nice, but I'm very impatient. And when somebody is not getting something, or like I'm repeating myself, a lot of times the ugliness comes out, which is again something I'm learning, or I've learned. And so this one has a lot to do with time and patience and all of that. So I love this one. I don't know if you can read it, but I'll read it. Everything comes to you at the right moment. Be patient, be grateful. And I hadn't used the word grateful, but that is an important idea, because sometimes we're so focused on what's next, or like me, I tend to reflect a lot, that we forget like what's right in front of us. And like I said, for me, what's helped is like, wow, the squirrels are dancing right around me, or like the bird. And so I find nature is probably one of the most powerful things to put you right in the moment. So if you're ever struggling to be in the moment, just go out in nature. It'll put you in the moment, like, and look at something, like look at a tree, or look at a bird, or look at a lake. It'll just get you in the moment. So I would say that's another kind of thing I picked up in my own reflection of things. All right, so I think what we'll do now is we have two, well, I kind of had two things in mind. One was everyone could kind of take the next 15 minutes or so and actually try this exercise, like try it, right? Think about your life, think about teachable moments, think about impactful moments just for yourself. Let this be your own time. So why don't we do that? If you happen to have any specific questions, put them in the chat. And then what we can do is I can do some responses live in the chat. But I'd love for you to honor these like next, 12 minutes or so that we're going to have. Actually, no, it's roughly 14 minutes. And take out a piece of paper, pen. I love writing. I'm not, I can't always just type. I need to, and I just want you to think creativity, peace, realness. How do I get there? Let me reflect on my life. Teachable moments, learnings, and do that now. And again, if you happen to have questions, feel free to just put them in the chat and I'll be answering those. And we will literally do this for 10 minutes. So I have 11:47 Eastern time. We'll come back at, or, feel free to come off camera if you want, and just think through it. And if you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat.
I know that's my thought process.
Sorry, what was that?
That's where my brain is right now when I think about those things.
With the bird? Are you talking about the bird?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I just think nature in general has a lot of messages for us, right? Like, even if it's just connecting with us, right? And seeing us as beings. So while we were thinking, you're supposed to share if any other thoughts that went on through your mind when the bird visited you. Besides just kind of being in awe at how still it was and how it was looking straight at me, I did notice how beautiful it was as well. I have blue jays, so I'm very blessed here. They just fly around my house and the neighborhood. So there's blue jays. A couple years ago, there were cardinals that would kind of come in close to my window. I've read the cardinals are like, again, I've just read this like on posts and things, that they're usually visitors coming to say hello, that have passed away. I don't know, that I really don't know. I just know that it's so beautiful when you get to see them close, because they're so beautiful, right? Their colors, and they're so different from our own bodies, right? They're just another thing that looks so different. Yes, I've heard that about cardinals, that they're supposed to kind of embody, souls that have passed away. Again, I don't know. That's beyond my knowledge. But anyway, I love that some of you are still thinking. Again, if any of you have to drop off, obviously drop off. But I think sometimes we don't give enough space for ourselves to think and reflect. And hey, we've got the hour booked here, so take it. And if you're done reflecting and thinking, like, feel free to grab something to drink, or come off camera. We'll do another, I said 57, so we can do another 3 minutes. And again, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them on the chat. And Miriam, that would be amazing about the screenshots, if possible. That would be cool. Yes, so the books I mentioned were so A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. So it's this one right here, A New Earth. And it's Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Very cool. And then you've got Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart. Love her. She's very research-based. The Alchemist, I don't have it here, but I would have loved to have seen it or shown it to you. Let me actually, this is another, by the way, if you're looking to kind of understand your strengths, so that you get a better understanding of kind of at the core what you're strong in, Strength Finders, this book is really great. It has an assessment that you could take at the end of it. And then I personally, when I chose which Bible that I wanted to read, I chose to buy the Complete Jewish Bible, because it really taps into the Old Testament in its most original form. But I also use the Bible app, by the way, but I also, you can choose which Bible you want to read, and this is the one I chose. I'm just looking here at the books that I have, if there's anything else that pops out that I would recommend. I'm sure there is, and you know what? The other thing I was going to share, if you're one of these people that you're like, I don't really read, I have to tell you, I sometimes don't even read these books. Sometimes it's like osmosis. Like, I feel like I just grew up and like I'm somehow like getting all the knowledge. So, sometimes, there's something to be said about that as well. Don't feel like you need to read something from cover to cover. Like I have to tell you with this one, I read like one chapter and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I just wanted to understand. And eventually I'll go back and probably, that's why it looks so new. I haven't really dove into this one, but like, I am one of these weird people. I call it reading by osmosis because, just having them somehow I feel like I absorb knowledge and information. So that's the other thing, never feel bad about not reading something. Even when people mention it, sometimes just having it gives you like this comfort that you could always read it if you want to. So be kind about that. All right, well, we're at 57. I'd love if there's anybody that would love to maybe, maybe do like a quick little intro on themselves. I know that people are wanting to meet each other. That was one of the things. I think we touched a lot on whether you're trying to be more assertive as a woman, whether you're in a career transition, whether you don't want to deal with politics. My advice is the same, right? It really is. Find that realness within you. I can tell you, I've never been more assertive in my life. Sometimes I think I'm borderline bitchy, but I control it, right? I only do it when, someone's really not opening up, right? Or like I find myself just having to hammer a message in of like understanding and like, moving something forward. And so I caveat all that with one of my biggest challenges is staying. Oh, I have to show you this. Oh my God, I swear everything is meant to be. Kindness is always in style. When I am short of patience and under pressure, my mom has always said this, my tone of voice can change and it could become not so kind. And so I watch that. I really watch that. Because at the end of the day, we all come in with so many things that we don't even know about. And we might have an agenda, but others might just be falling apart and you just don't know that. And that, I can tell you, that's my biggest evolution. I get too hung up on my own agenda sometimes. So that one, kindness is always in style. So important. So important. I'm so glad I remembered that. I would have felt really guilty if I didn't say that. Lovely. I mean, I don't want to hold anybody. I hope you grab like each other's names. If anybody wants to just, give each other like email addresses. I don't know exactly how this all works, but maybe Miriam, I don't know if we can do like a distribution of everybody that attended the call as a way to connect with each other. Is that possible? Can we do like a list of all the attendees and just post it somewhere? Would that work with emails and locations?